So I got to see Film Red yesterday, and I was very happy about it. um, I got to see Film Red this last Saturday, and I, by the time we left the movie theater, even partway through the movie, I'm thinking that I was sitting there going, I love this movie already, and it's like, okay, I may have found my new favorite One Piece movie, which is saying something because I really love Strong World, and Film Z is really good, and Film Gold is actually quite good too. Um, Stampede, I can give or take Stampede. I mean, like I enjoy watching it; it's fun to watch, but like the story isn't as emotionally invested as like in some of the other ones when it comes to some of the other One Piece movies. Um, but I really loved Film Red. And the day that we went and saw it, the Saturday we went and saw it this last Saturday, was also a Husker game day. So lots of people downtown wearing red that had nothing to do with the movie. I'd kind of somewhat hoped that maybe bringing, Film Red and everything, maybe would bring some luck to the Huskers. It didn't. We still lost, unfortunately. Um, we were leaving the theater. We were downtown, and like the game had already started by the time the movie started when we got downtown, which we were lucky enough to find a parking spot, which is a miracle downtown Lincoln on a game day in the morning on a game day when the game is a morning game. And we were leaving the theater after the movie, and the game had let out. And like I just asked people that were walking by, so should I ask how the game went? And they went, not well. And I'm like, that tells me the answer I needed because I hadn't checked the score yet. So yeah. Um, another thought I wanted to get out of the way before I go into this. And yes, I debated about just putting a bunch of Husker shirts up in the background because Film Red, but I'm like, no. And so I went with my more creativity shirt because Uta is very creative, admittedly, in how she uses her devil fruit in this movie. But another thing I wanted to point out before I get into the actual, my review and summary of the movie is when I was sitting there watching the movie, I was trying to remember. It's just like, what does this remind me of? Because Uta's giving this big concert, and it's to these people that have had all these horrible experiences with pirates and, to a degree, the world government and things like that. And I'm like, what does this remind me of? And I'm like, I kind of was like, oh yeah, there was Live Aid and Band Aid in like the 1985 and 1986 range with like U2 and Elton John and David Bowie and The Who and Queen and just so many other bands and artists and everything like that were, so big at the time and such. And like they were doing all this stuff because of stuff that was going on in Africa. And they were like, these were concerts that were like global concerts, which is basically what Uta is doing in the movie. And so I was like, well, that's kind of what that reminded me of. So I wanted to point that out. And saying this now, I straight up copied parts of this summary from the Library of Ohara where Artor is, so that I would be able to hit all of the beats, of the movie in the correct order. So, I mean, like, this is still going to be, like, my opinion of what happened in the movie. It's not Artor's opinion. It's not the opinion from the Library of Ohara, but I wanted to have, like, a really good outline of, like, going through all of the plot of the movie, so I would hit things in the right order as best as possible. So, and I will just leave the link below along with the links for a bunch of the different music videos that, of course, tie into the movie and everything. I'm sure people have already found those anyway, and they'll probably have found those long before they see this video, but, I tried to organize them in the order that, like, Uta sings the songs in the movie, or that the songs are used in the movie. Which, straight up saying this at the beginning, I love how they work the songs into this movie with the way that Uta's Devil Fruit works and the way that they have the songs that she's singing. Certain songs have certain meanings in the show, obviously, throughout the course of the movie, and I love how they work that in there. So I'm just basically using the summary from the Library of Ohara as like a guideline, just to make sure that I hit all the right story beats. And I'm sure that, I'm hoping that's okay. I have no way of being able to ask Artur if that is okay, of being able to ask them if that's okay, but I'm giving them credit for, this is where I got a lot of the information from. And I did love the movie, and I saw the movie, and I'm just doing this to make sure that I didn't miss anything. So, the beginning of the movie is, the wealth, fame, power speech, similar to what we see at the beginning of all the anime episodes and at the beginning of the manga. And we see lots of these images of, things that have resulted because of the Great Pirate Area, where these pirates are flourishing all over the world. Some are good, obviously, like the Straw Hats and the Whitebeard pirates and stuff like that, while other ones, like Kaido and to a degree, and Big Mom and Blackbeard and tons of these other pirates that have just caused nothing but harm to people. And we see the suffering and the plight of all these other, of all of the civilians of the One Piece world, and everything from what they've gone through and everything that they've lost because of the pirates and everything. And, how much, and I mean, some of them have probably had far worse experiences with pirates than others have. Some of them have probably had slightly better experiences with pirates than others have. Obviously, a lot of the people in the East Blue that, of course, know about Luffy and his crew, the Baratier and, a bunch, and Cocoa Village and, Windmill Village and everything, Fushi Village, they know that the Straw Hats are good. And, certain people in, Syrup Village and stuff know that the Straw Hats are good. Same thing with even the Marines at Shellstown and such. They know that the Straw Hats are, to a degree, at least somewhat good pirates. To a degree is, where the Shelltown people are coming from. But everybody else kind of knows that, yeah, they're good pirates. But they also, Nami's, everybody in Cocoa Village also had horrible experiences with pirates and everything because of Arlong. So you see that dichotomy, and that's kind of where we're coming from with, the majority of the people on the planet have these horrible images of pirates. And, we see, just how horrible things are. Uta is able to see a lot of the stuff because people will send her videos on Den Mushi and stuff like that. So she's able to see what's going on, hear people recount about how horrible things have been because of the pirates. They took everything from us. They killed my husband or my brother or my son or my, insert whoever. And yeah, no, I perfectly understand why people would have such a horrible experiences with pirates in the One Piece world, because the majority of the pirates are not the best kind of pirates. We see Uta, of course, getting prepared for her concert and everything. And then we also see the Straw Hats are all there as well. They're all in their more fun outfits and everything. I love Jinbei dressed as Elvis. That is one of my favorites. And Uta dressed like he just walked straight out of a Kiss concert. I just found that so adorable. And Frankie's dressed as a giant stereo boombox. I love the outfits that the Straw Hats were in this movie. They are so fun. I had explained to my niece the other day, because I told her what my mom and I were going to go see, and I'm like, well, and they have different outfit changes throughout the movie, and she's like, why? And I'm like, well, merchandising mostly, but throughout the course of the movie, there's different reasons for why they have to change their outfits. Usually the outfits get, torn up and destroyed, so they need to get new ones and stuff like that. And in this case, I love how they work the outfit change into the movie, and I'll get to that when we get to that. But, the Straw Hats are all there, and they're all just Luffy's just focusing on eating. Everybody else is just hey, we're going to be at a concert. Zoro, why are we here? Jinbei, why are we dressed like this? And then the concert starts up, and it's Uta singing, New Era, New Genesis, the first song that came out because of the movie and everything. Even Brooke says that, even his status as Soul King can't even compare to what Uta's status has become, which is saying something. One thing we don't get in this movie is we don't get Brooke and Uta singing together, which would have been great, but that didn't happen. Didn't happen. Wish it had, didn't happen. I'm okay with this, though. Somewhat okay with this. I may have to make a theory video about that at some point. The Uta starts singing, and it's just it started off being very foggy and dreary all over the island and everything, and then it's just it bursts into color, and there's special effects and everything all over the place and everything as Uta's singing. The crowd is chanting UTA, UTA again and again and again as she's singing. And we cut all over there, and everything is being broadcast all over the island and all over the world, with all these different Den Mushi and everything. So we see we cut to different places all over the East Blue and like all over the Grand Line. We see Whoop Slap and the others in Fuchsia Village just being really happy as they're watching this. We see the cooks of the Baratier listening. We see at that point in time, we don't ever, during those times, we don't cut to anywhere else in the East Blue, but we see some of the other places. We see some stuff in the East Blue later on, which I'll get to. We see like Drum Island and we see Saba Odi and stuff like that broadcast all over the place. I think we see like people, I don't know if we see people in Water 7 at that point in time, but we see these, places all over the world that, the music is being broadcast to, the show is being broadcast to. And everybody is just having so much fun, and like Uta is like using her powers. And say this right now, Uta has a double fruit that is called the Uta Uta no Mi. I made one. For anyone that actually watches me and also watches Tekking 101, which is probably a fair amount of you, this is one of the new ones that will be sent to him. And I also made Uta's logo. Although I may have to make another one of her logos for the one that she wears on her hand for different reasons. And we see her singing and everything, and it's great. There's beautiful effects all over the place during that during that part of the concert. And after the first song is done, then we have this moment where, we kind of cut back and we see like other people watching and everything. We see like the guy that like got like the headphones and like the scar on his head watching like other pirates that are getting ready to, of course, try to kidnap Uta, because of course they are. And then once Uta's done singing the first song, Luffy just straight up just like, stretches his arm out and like swings to the stage and lands in front of her. And she's like looking at him like she doesn't recognize him, but like admittedly his hat's kind of down and everything. And he, it's been 12 years since Uta saw him, a little over 12 years since Uta saw Luffy. And, he looks up and, they've both grown quite a lot. But, now Luffy has the scar underneath his eye. Underneath his left eye. I'm like, yeah, no, it's under his left eye. Yes, left eye. Poster reference in the background. And Uta takes a moment to recognize him. She's like, well, it's me, it's Luffy. Like everybody's like, oh no, it's the fifth emperor. Is he gonna try to kidnap her or something like that? And Luffy and Uta just like he recognized her because of her singing and the way that she looked, and then she's like, Luffy, and that's part of the stuff that we see in the trailer, and and then he ends up hugging her, and she's like really happy to see him. And then, like, Sanji's jealous that Luffy got to hug Uta, that he even knows who she is. Usopp and Chopper are like, oh my god, how do you know Uta? And he's like, well, I've known her since forever. She's Shanks' daughter. We kind of, used to be friends when we were friends when we were kids. And, like, that's where the whole reveal is, oh my god, Uta is Shanks' daughter, he says to, like, the entire crowd of people. And broadcasting all over the frickin' world. Smart there, Luffy. Luffy doesn't have much of a brain-to-mouth filter anyway, so okay. And, so that's made, that announcement is made to the world, and that caused the entire auditorium and everybody to just be in shock. I love that Uta is, like, annoyed that Luffy dropped that fact and everything while she's trying to keep it a secret. I love that. That's when, this other group of pirates, the jellyfish pirates, whatever, show up, and they try to kidnap Uta, and, that doesn't happen. Luffy just, okay, I'm not going to let you kidnap my friend. And then that's when Oven and Brule, Charlotte Oven and Charlotte Brule show up from the Big Mom Pirates and such. And, they're both like, oh, well, now that you're revealed to be Shanks' daughter, that just, makes the price on your head go up even more and blah, blah, blah. And, we get to see Oven and Brule. Apparently they're not worried about pudding at the moment. Admittedly, by technicality, since I call Luffy the fifth emperor in the movie, technically I guess this would take place sometime before he's been announced as the new Yonko. Him and Buggy are Yonko. We never see Buggy in this movie either, which is just funny. But, we see all of that, and, Luffy and the rest of the Straw Hats tried to protect Uta from, the Brule and Oven and the jellyfish pirates and everything. And they're just like, yeah, no. Uta's like, no, don't do that. why don't all of you just, simply give up being pirates? And then she ends up making, I love what she does. She makes a song out of them. I love how she works with that. And we see her use her devil fruit power. And this is when she turns into her, kind of the armor looking one with like the spear and the crown and everything that we see her, in the trailers and such. And we see her, she makes like musical bars appear, and then like they wrap around the jellyfish pirates and oven and brulee, and they wrap around them, and then they like pin them up as like a song, as like they're like musical notes on a music bar. And I love how they do that. And she's just like, oh, I took care of them, they're a song now. And we have her, this is where she sings I am the best, or I think invincible is, I think, another word that they have there. Not even going to attempt to pronounce the Japanese. I apologize. And, she pins them up, and then like everybody is cheering. And then, she makes all these different colorful objects and food and everything else appear out, toys and food and other things and liquor, much to Zoro's, pleasure, and other things, pop out of the air and everything to give to everyone. And she's saying, I'm going to make this concert go on forever and everything. And, what ends up happening is, while she's taking, one of her little breaks, she goes and she ends up talking to Luffy and his crew. We kind of get a cutaway to while she's singing. We cut to like Whole Cake Island where Big Mom is, and and the rest of the crew, Paris Sparrow and Smoothie and a whole bunch of the other ones are there, and Flampe, who can go jump off of a cliff and fall for all I care. And we all see a bunch of them, and then they're just like, oh well, she's Shanks' daughter, that just makes her even more valuable. And then, Katakuri's like, oh, well, I'm going to go save my sister, because he's going to go off and save Brulee, because now Brulee has been pinned to a musical note bar. Dude, there are worse things that can happen to your sister. She's pinned to a musical bar. She's not really in much danger at the moment, by technicality. So Katakuri's like, I'm going to go save my sister. I would have been Oven in the background. What about me? And the fact that Katakuri is so focused on saving Brulee, Oven is just getting it saved by extension. But then again, Katakuri has always been much more of the, I'm going to protect all of my sisters and be the perfect big brother for my sisters. And such. So I wish we had that. And also it just harkens back to the very close relationship that we know that Brulee and Katakuri have, which is one of the relationships within the siblings for the Charlotte family that I really like that they show with those two. Harkens back to that, even though Oven is his triplet. I was going to say, do we see Daifuku at all in this? I don't remember if we see Daifuku or whatever, but yeah. So he's heading off to go to Elysia, which is where this whole concert is taking place. And it's, it's stated somewhere in this time frame that about 12 years ago, or a little over 12 years ago, there was this horrible event that happened on Elysia that was this, this epicenter for like music within the One Piece world. This island where, the most amazing music and performers and stuff like that have come from, the most renowned music schools and stuff like that. And that's where, that's what this island was famous for. And it's, somewhat stated that we kind of see like the Gorosei, we cut to the Gorosei talking, and, again, the Gorosei can go jump off of a cliff for all I care. But we see them talking, and they're talking about the fact that, she's Utah's daughter. I wonder if she has any of the Figureland blood, the Figureland family, which is, this is where we're kind of feeling that, Shanks has this type of, is, from this family, which the way that they're implying it, of course, and other things that have been implied with Shanks, basically somewhat confirm that he is a celestial dragon, or is at least the child of a celestial dragon. We get more on Shanks' backstory later on in the movie. And, they're very concerned about what Uta could do, and they already have, like, CPI just Zero headed off to go and deal with that. We see, like, Rob Lucci talking with him and everything, because, well, I guess the CPI just Zero agents that could have been on Wano could still be alive at this point in time. But then again, the One Piece movies don't really follow continuity anyway, so yeah. Yeah. And we, kind of head off to that. And of course we cut back to where we get a little bit more information that, that what had happened was, about 12 years ago, this horrible monster called Musica, or, literally all music, this demon king, devil king, had been released on the island of Elysia. And the red-haired pirates are the ones that were blamed for it. And we kind of get this, somewhat confirmation and stuff like that. We see Sakazuki getting angry because he has no other variation of emotion beyond angry and slightly less angry, and apparently bonsai pruning from what we see from one of the cover stories. So yeah, that's what he has: angry, angrier, turn person into donuts, and then bonsai trees. Those are his levels of anger, or non-anger. And again, Sakazuki can go jump off of a cliff for all I care. And we see Kizuru and Fujitora headed off to, to go deal with the concert and everything. And I kind of wish we'd seen Aramaki in this, but, by the time the movie's being made, Aramaki hasn't really been introduced yet. And so there's a little bit of like, well, we can't really put him into the movie yet. But, we see Kizuru and Fujitora headed off to deal with Uta and such, along with a bunch of Marines and everything like that. It kind of implying that they might be willing to do a buster call, but that doesn't seem to be the case. And then we have it where, Uta goes and she ends up talking to the Straw Hats and everything. And, talking with them and Luffy and, reminiscing about their past and everything. And we have this moment where, like, they eat, Uta and Luffy each claim that they have like a record of 183 wins over the other one, but they're all like, that seems like a very odd way, because like Luffy says he has 183 and Uta says she has 183, so yeah, but they were like, she was 9 and he was 7, so let them have their thoughts on that. And then they're both misremembering it. And, we see that, which is, of course, hearkening back to what we saw in the 2 episodes, the 2-episode tie-in that they did for the movie, where we see, Uta and Luffy, in, Fuchsia Village, which I just love those. Those 2 episodes are so adorable. I showed them to my mom in preparation for us to go to see the movie, so she had a rough idea of what was going to happen. I mean, my mom has enough of an idea of what's going on about, the characters in One Piece, but it's still like, okay, I'm going to give you more of an information before we go into this so you have a better idea of what's going on. So I showed her those 2 episodes, and then gave her a little bit additional backstory that she needed to kind of understand what she was going to see. And, so, because I don't have anyone else that can go to the movie with me. And, so Luffy and Uta are talking, and she even asked, so it's only the 10 of you that are here. There's no one else. And he's like, no, there is no one else. And she's like, so where's Shanks? I don't know. And then they end up having like this, basically like their version of like a chicken eating contest, I guess, where it's just like they both eat, it's like whoever can eat chicken the fastest and then not get attacked by the dog, or in this case, a bull, and Uta tricks Luffy and she wins and everything. So we get that. We get other moments that, of course, reference back to the show, reference back to the 2 episodes. And then, of course, we get this other scene where we see Luffy and, we go flashback where we see Luffy and Uta as kids again. And of course, they're, at the village and everything. And we see Makino and, Luffy and Uta are going to have like their chicken eating contest and everything. Like this dog is going to like attack them or whatever. And, Makino is there and, she's trying to make them stop. And then like Shanks is just like, no, let him do it. She's like, yes, okay, sure. Why do I have a feeling Roger and Rayleigh and Scopper and the rest of the Roger Pirates had you and Buggy have similar competitions? Because that wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if that was the case. Here, which one of you can eat this faster? Why is that a competition? And so we see that. And then we cut, Uta ends up, singing in the past. We see her sing in the past. And then we have this moment where Shanks, the two of them are arguing over like who is Shanks's favorite child, and he's like letting them just like climb all over Shanks. Shanks is just letting Uta and Luffy climb all over him as they're bickering and everything, just like siblings. And which, I like that they show that with Shanks. I like that they show that. And because it's just like, if you're experienced from having nieces and nephew of my own, depending on how tall you are Jungle Gym if they are small enough, and they will climb all over you. You sit down, they will climb all over you because you are an entertaining thing to climb on. They will do that. That is what small children will do. And so we see that. We see the rest of this, the red hair pirates that would have been around at the time and everything. And then we kind of do like some cuts back and forth between like the past and, the present and stuff like that, where we see Uta still talking with the Straw Hats and stuff, and like, telling them about stuff about, Luffy when they were when they were in the past and everything. And Uta in the past, she ends up singing Where the Wind Blows, which is the song we see her sing in the anime when she's a little kid. We see her sing that at Party's Bar and everything. And she, very much declares and states that she is the proud musician of the red-haired pirates and everything. And Luffy had asked her, well, why do you call him Shanks and not Dad or Father or whatever? Coming from the kid who has never met his father. She says, well, yeah, Shanks is my dad, but he's also my captain because I'm the red-haired pirate's musician. So we have that. And we cut back to, the present, and like she asks Luffy, well, what are you up to? And he's like, well, I'm a pirate, and I'm going to be the king of the pirates. And we see Uta get like somewhat angry at this. And yeah, she's not very happy about this. We also kind of get some other cuts that kind of show similar things to what we saw happen in the episodes, where the red hair pirates left, and then they came back and they didn't have Uta with them, and we saw how upset that made Luffy and everything. And how that Shanks had said, oh well, we left her so she could become devote herself to becoming a songstress and everything, that she would be fine and such. And we have these moments where Uta, now they're all grown up again, cutting back and forth a little bit. Uta and Luffy, back to, where all the rest of the Straw Hats are around them and they're talking and everything. And Uta ends up saying that, well, why don't you just, stop being a pirate, which is, of course, what it says on her, on the poster that they released for the movie, where it's, Luffy, stop being a pirate. Which a lot of people had initially interpreted as like, well, she wants Luffy to stop being a pirate because then Shanks can become king of the pirates instead. It's just like, no, that's not the case. Not the case at all. And Luffy's just like, well, I'm just going to go hang out on the ship. You guys can stay here and hang out longer at the concert and everything and have fun. And then this is where Uta becomes impatient and angry, and she ends up kind of, well, it's hard to say because it's like, I don't remember if it's exactly if she tried to attack Luffy and then Luffy tries to, he defends himself, obviously, but this is where it's revealed that Uta is going to be kind of the villain of the movie and everything. She becomes a bit, much more deranged look in her eye and everything. And, Nami tries to calm her down. Doesn't help. And Uta ends up then capturing Nami and Sanji and then, turning them into a song piece. And then then we get the song Backlight, which is another song that came out recently. Which, it's Uta singing and everything and demonstrating the powers that she has and everything, and she has these musical note knights that show up and start attacking, fighting against, the Straw Hats and pinning them. And, Luffy will attack the musical note knights, but he won't attack Uta. which in my opinion is just a straight up callback to what he saw Shanks do with Higama, and then of course what happened in Mocktown with Bellamy. Luffy, of course, does not want to fight Uta because she is his friend. Even though it's been a long time since they've seen each other, she is still his friend. And he doesn't want to attack her because she's clearly, and at this point, Luffy's, observation hockey and stuff like that has gotten a lot stronger and such. So he's much more able to sense that there is something off about Uta. And, she's his friend and he just wants to help her. And of course, so Uta's singing and she ends up, getting attacked. She kind of ends up pinning all the Straw Hats up into, the musical notes, and she ends up having, this thing where she just tells Luffy, stop being an evil pirate and everything like that. And he's like, well, I'm not an evil pirate. Well, I don't think he says that necessarily, but the citizens also start to fight back. They fight alongside Uta and everything, chanting again, UTA, again and again and again. And, they even throw water at Luffy, which seems to have a much more effect on him than just throwing regular water on him would. And he ends up getting, room and shambled out of there by Law. Well, actually, first it's Bartolomeo shows up and tries to protect Luffy. And we kind of cut to, we see Kobe and Helmeppo in the audience, which we saw them there anyway in the trailers and such. So that's not surprising. And Luffy ends up, Bartolomeo shows up and, he's trying to help Luffy and everything. Why Bartolomeo was at the concert, I don't know. I guess he's an Uta fan as well. And then he ends up... no, that was Shanks' punishment to Bartolomeo for the fact of, oh, you attacked a village that's under my thing. Go listen to this pop music. I don't know. That was Bartolomeo's, punishment. But I love the fact that even the pirates that were going to kidnap her, and Big Mom and stuff, are they're still fans of Uta. I still like that they pull that off. That they show that. Because it's just funny. And we see, Luffy and Bartolomeo get, whisked away and everything, and then we see them talking with Law. And, we see, they end up seeing Law, and they're just I love that Barto teases Law about being oh, you're really a closet idol fan of Uta, and it's just out just walks. No, he's no, I'm chaperoning someone, and out just walks Beppo. And the whole get up that we see in the trailers. And it lights up. I love it. And then he's just I'm chaperoning him. And then Beppo is just yes, I'm sorry, Law. Just Beppo, you are one of Law's best friends. If you want to go to a concert and Law takes you, that's him being your friend. It's fine. Would have been extra hilarious to see the rest of the Heart Pirates there as well, all decked out in Uta-themed merchandise. That would have been funny. We had a call back to that later in the movie, and I like it at the end. And it's just okay, well, we have to figure out what's going on here. And, they end up getting pulled away by this man whose name is Gordon, and he explains that, I need to give you information about what's going on with Uta, and I want you to try to save her because she's going to do something stupid. We cut also to where we see Kobe and Helmeppo trying to contact Sword, and that doesn't work, and then we see them interacting with Blueno, who is apparently now part of CPI just Zero. Apparently so is Khalifa, because we see her later in the movie. We saw them in the posters. We see them talking with Blueno and such, and he's oh, well, I guess Sword can't even get in contact. Just so apparently the two know each other. The Aegis Zero and Sword know what's going on with each other. I'm that kind of defeats the whole purpose of a secret organization inside of the Marines. But for the context of the movie, sure, I'll buy it. And so, the three of them are kind of trying to work together and everything with, Blueno's Door no Mi, which is just kind of fun. I don't think I ever explained to my mom what that power was that he was using. But yeah, we see that and everything. And, the musical note nights, which I just love, are all looking all over the place for Luffy and his group and everything. And, Luffy and the others are trying to get away. Luffy, Law, Beppo, and Bartolomeo are trying to escape. And this is where we see Barto running with Luffy on underneath his arm, which is just kind of funny in general. And this is where they end up interacting with Gordon and everything, and he explains that, oh, well, this is actually where Uta has been living for the past 12 years. She was the sole survivor of the attack that happened here 12 years ago. Well, him and Uta were the two sole survivors. And over the, I kind of became her foster father, and I trained her to become the best singer and the best, performer that I could. And Uta just had these really bad mental states and stuff like that because of the trauma that had happened to her. And she kept, he would find her at times singing, like she was trying to sing to like an old friend and stuff like that, which I'm kind of thinking as well. I'm sitting there watching the movie and I'm like, well, it's clearly she's either thinking about Luffy at the time, because he was like the only one that we see her around that was like her age would have been Luffy, because clearly the way that we know that from the trailers, Shanks and Uta did not part on good terms. And she even states at one point, well, Shanks abandoned me. So she doesn't have this. So I'm assuming the song comes up again later on. It's her singing about like a friend that she hasn't seen for a long time or so, or being on the beach with the friend and stuff like that, where they used to play, which is clearly a reference to Luffy. And it ends up, Gordon explains that it's just like, oh, she's been through so much trauma and everything, and I just want you to try to save her. And what had happened was, about 3 years ago, they found these bunch of these discarded Dendenmushi that were from the Special Science Group, so Vegapunk reference. And they were going, Uta ended up finding out that they could broadcast, all around the world, and she used them to be able to broadcast her singing and everything. And over time, people would end up sending videos back to her talking more and more about, everything that had happened to them because of pirates and everything, because of this pirate crew or that pirate crew or these horrible ones or whatever. And like they kept saying that, your music helps us, your music gives us hope, that it helps uplift us and everything. And just side note, during this time frame, various points, Beppo's outfit keeps lighting up and going off, and he has to keep turning it off, which is just funny. And like Luffy's somewhat paying attention, but he's also just like, he's Luffy, and there's like exposition going on, so he's like playing with rocks and sticks and stacking them up, because that's the way that Luffy's mind works. And like Bardo even kind of apologizes to Gordon, because Gordon's like, aren't you listening to Luffy? And Bardo's like, it's okay, just keep going. We're listening, old man. So we get that. And Gordon is like pleading with Luffy to like try to stop Uta from what she's going to do and everything. And during this time frame, Uta and the rest of her, the rest of the audience, or a bunch of the audience members, have shown up because they like found where they were, and she like chibi-fies Beppo, which is just makes him even more adorable, which is so cute. Chibi-fies him, and then Luffy and Law. Gordon gets like stuck up on like the wall on like a musical note thing again, and Luffy, Law, and Bartolomeo get they whisk away and everything. And we have these moments where like Uta is just like she like kind of scolds Gordon for what he's doing, and then she states that she found the score for Top Musica like buried in the basement, that she found it, and she may kind of like, if you try to stop me, I'll use this. And what's it? At one point in time, Uta ends up getting Luffy's straw hat, but I don't remember exactly when that is. I don't remember if that's now or if that's later. I don't remember off the top of my head. But what ends up happening is, she like turns it into a fun game of like her and the rest of the bunch of the audience members like going after the pirates. And yeah, I think during this time is when Uta gets her hands on Luffy's straw hat and everything. And I like part of her powers, like she can like shrink items down and like turn them into a musical note and like hide them in her headphones. I like how they use that. That's really fun. And they send Luffy and Beppo, or not Beppo. Beppo's kind of stuck with Gordon at the moment, but Luffy and Law and Barto are like running around the island, and like Barto's got like Luffy inside of his barrier and everything, so Luffy can't escape because Luffy. And so we have the moment, and it's basically like a giant hamster wheel where it's just like Barto is inside of it, and then Luffy is also inside of it. But like as Barto's walking, Luffy is like spinning around inside of it and like getting really sick, and like Blaw's just walking next to them calmly, which is just funny. I love that. That's just funny, and so we see that. And they end up like falling off a cliff and then falling down by the pier. And then like during this time frame, like the rest of the Straw Hats are like pinned up on the musical notes. We're trying to figure out like how they can escape. And of course, because of the angle, Brooke's trying to look up Nami's panties because of course he is. And we see that they kind of figure out the fact that we're placed at different points on this thing, and she made a song out of us. So if we sing the song, we should be able to get down. And so they're trying to figure out like that, and then that's where like Bluto opens up his door fruit in the wall, in the air in front of them, and like Kobe's there, and he's like writing out like the musical note, and, like shows it to Brooke. It's just like, well, you're halfway there. Here you go, and like shows it to Brooke. So it's implying that Brooke then sings, and we have this moment where I think it's Kobe that says to Oven and Brule and the rest of the pirates that are trapped there, it's just like, well, we'll let you down if you agree to work with us. And Oven is kind of like, I don't care what happens to me, just let my sister down. Which again, a lot of the brothers within the Charlotte family are very protective of the sisters, which I like. Which I kind of think is Oda playing on the whole thing of like, older brothers are supposed to protect younger sisters. But also it can be vice versa, where older sisters can protect younger brothers, and older siblings protect younger siblings, and younger siblings can always protect older siblings. That is not a bad thing. So we see that, and it's basically, I love the fact that they're basically like flies on fly paper on these musical bars. They're really cute, and like it's just like they can't even get off, so it's funny. And then like they release them, and it's just like, okay, well, we have to work together. And at this point in time, Luffy and the others have ended up getting Luffy, Law, and Barto end up landing at the pier, where they end up coming across the little tiny the Sunny, which is just full up straight. Yes, the Sunny has a soul is basically what it's saying. From what we find out later, is that the Sunny has a soul, and that is what this thing is. This is Sunny's Club Outermon, or some form of Sunny's Club Outermon, which is just so adorable. And I want a stuffed version of it, and I probably won't be able to get one, but they're so cute. And so we have that, and all it says is Sunny over and over again, but it's adorable. And we see, Beppo kind of like got Gordon down from the notes thing by doing the same thing, because like Gordon knows how like Uta's power works and everything, and Beppo got him down by singing where Gordon was, which is adorable. And then we kind of cut to where we cut outwards to where the island seems to be surrounded by Marines, and it's very cloudy and everything like that. And it's like, okay, well, this is clearly not the case, because it's like bright and sunny and like the middle of the day and everything like that, where everybody else is. And we see everybody else, all of the like the audience members, including Luffy and the crew, are just like all like fast asleep on the ground wherever they'd been standing when Uta started singing. And we see including, everybody is just fast asleep. And we see, the Marines showing up, Fujitora and, Kizaru show up, and like Momonga and a bunch of the other vice admirals are there and such. And like they're showing up and looking around, and they're just like, oh, well, this is how her fruit works and everything. And then we see Uta come out, and she's got like this basket, and she's got Luffy's straw hat, which implies that not only did she take it from him in this other area, she also just physically took his straw hat from him. And we see her come out and like just talk to Fujitora and such, and she's like, well, what is it that happens? We basically get this explanation where Fujitora is like, oh, well, you're eating these weird mushrooms, which are called wake shrooms, or insomnia shrooms is also, I think, a variation I saw. And they're kind of cute looking. They're like pink and everything. And like we see her just like, chowing down on them. And it's basically what is stated is that, oh, as long as you eat these, you won't fall asleep. But Sanji gives another explanation later of the more you eat them, you become much more mood swings, much more obsessive, much more irritable. A lot of these other things that just kind of keep focusing in on like things that we definitely see are affecting Uta in various ways. And we get this explanation about the Uta Uta no Mi, or the Song Song fruit, that the way that the power works, because we also see like Kobe going and talking to the audience within this other world, is that the people that hear Uta sing when she uses her fruit power, specifically when she uses her fruit power, that they fall asleep and they go into this kind of dream world where Uta is kind of the one that can manipulate everything. She can use her power, which is why we see her being able to pin them up on the musical notes. We can see her be able to create anything in this world, and how she's able to just like control so many different things. She can't control people's wills, obviously, in this world, but she can make things appear. And that's, that's probably why Luffy was a lot weaker to the water, because it was like power enhanced water, so it like affects him more than it should, and like other cases. And we see these other moments where, we get Kobe, explaining to the audience what's going on, and they're like, oh, that's Kobe, the hero of the Marines and everything. And Uta's like, oh, well, I'm not very up on current events, so I don't know who he is. And, because Uta's been isolated on the island on Elysia for, 12 years at this point in time, even with all the information that she does get from her fans, she doesn't have like the full context of everything that's happening. And we have these moments where it's so it's like this parallel plane where it's just like all of the souls of the people that have listened to the music, listen to her sing right now while she's using her powers, are in this other world, and then their bodies are asleep in the real world. So, and like Uta is kind of in both worlds. So I don't know 100% how that works with her power. Like, can she kind of go back and forth from one to the other a little bit? And what ends up happening is, Fujitora and Kizaru end up pulling out, and like a bunch of their men like pull out these, headphones and visors that are designed to block out Uta's song, so that way they can try to fight her. And Uta, what she ends up doing is, as she sings, I don't remember if this is when another song comes into play or not, but we do get like the explanation from Kobe in this way, and she summons more musical notes to try to attack Kobe and such. And what ends up happening is, in the real world, Uta can manipulate people's bodies, so she makes the civilians, the different people that are there, like kind of attack the Marines and try to pull off the headphones, so that way they then fall asleep like they're supposed to when she sings, and then they end up in the dream world, and then she can then manipulate their own bodies. We never see Fujitora or Kizaru fall for this trick, because they're awake the entire time. They never get affected by her music directly. But of course, Fujitora is, of course, much less wanting to hurt the civilians and hurt any of his men. Kizaru is a little bit less amicable to that. He's like, I'll do what I have to. Which I'm sitting there pointing them out to my mom. Okay, so we like the one in purple. We don't like the one in yellow. Why? You'll see later. The one in the purple is much more reasonable and nice. And so we get more of this, and it's kind of revealed that the way that Uta's powers work, Luffy mentions that, when Uta was a kid and she would sing, that's kind of what would happen. We would just kind of fall asleep, and then we would wake up again, which is never implied in any of either of the two episodes, because we see her sing at least once in one of those, and we don't see the others fall asleep. So it's I don't think we ever get a exact statement of when Uta ate her devil fruit, when she ate the Uta Uta no Mi. It could have been sometime before they landed on Fuchsia Village. It could have been sometime a little while later. Probably not while they were on Fuchsia. Probably not while they were in the Goa Kingdom, but sometime later. It also, so it's not 100% stated one way or the other whether or not that's how it works. And during this time frame, the Straw Hats have kind of all broken up, or, well, not broken up, but I want to make sure that I get all these different moments right. At one point, Bluto gets like chibi-fied as well, which is just kind of funny, and everything, which is really funny. Um, it's stated the way that it's stated is that the way that the fruit works is that they will, everybody will stay asleep until Uta falls asleep, and then they would, be returned to their bodies depending on how long they've been, within her, singing world. And what we see happen is Uta, of course, she's just been eating these mushrooms so much that it's very much affecting the way that she, sees the world and everything like that. Um, and like Sanji gives a little bit more of like, it makes them much more temperamental and stuff like that. It very much affects people's moods and personality at this point in time. But we also get the explanation is that, oh, if Uta dies while everybody is still in this world, then they will all die as well. And I'm sitting there going, that's a little bit too Jonestown for my liking. If anybody doesn't know what Jonestown is, just Google Jonestown and Kool-Aid. It's not fun. Which is double not fun because Kool-Aid is from Nebraska. Kool-Aid was invented here in Nebraska. So of course that just gives it a bad name in that regard because of that, because of Jonestown. And I'm like, it's a little too Jonestown there, Uta. And it's like revealed to the audience as well, because Kobe reveals to the audience that this is what's going to happen, is that if Uta dies in the real world, then all of us will die as well. And Uta's intention is to, of course, kind of to have that happen. That's why she's, eating the wake shrooms and everything like that to keep herself awake in the real world. And so that way everybody else, she can bring more and more, like she brought out a bunch of the Marines and everything and take out a bunch of the Marines and everything like that. Which I see where she's coming from, but it is not a good reason to do this. Not a good reason at all. And the people in the audience start to get some are very angry about this. Others are much more amenable to us and agree with Uta. So we see that comparison there. And, during these various times, Uta ends up kind of fighting against the Marines and everything with the bodies of everybody else. Like at one point we see Khalifa, she'd been like observing things and hasn't been affected because she hasn't heard Uta sing. And such. So what basically it is implying is that when Uta started singing at the concert, she activated her fruit, and that then pulled everybody into this dream world. And you don't notice that it happens until afterwards. You don't notice that well, technically you're not supposed to notice it at all until someone points it out to you. And, she has the basket with Luffy's hat and the shrooms in it and everything, and the mushrooms in it as she's eating those and dealing with the Marines. And this is where we kind of get this, like, back and forth thing where we cut between the real world and like Uta and Kobe and the dream and the virtual world, and we have her sing a fleeting lullaby where we listen to her sing that, which I love how they work the songs into this. I love that. And we see her singing that and everything and taking care of the causes civilians to swarm the Marines and everything. And like what is going on is that these snails that she's using to broadcast all over the world, their souls have been taken as well, so they're asleep. And what they're doing is they're broadcasting Uta's songs throughout the world, so people keep falling asleep all over the world in lots of different areas. I think we see them fall asleep in Alabasta and a whole bunch of other random places, because Uta has set it up for these snails to broadcast all over the world. We even see the Gorosei watching the concert, and like they've got Lucci with them. And they have like the sound off, so they're not affected by it. I don't know, way to get things moving a little bit faster. So we see that. And then during this time frame, what else? What else ends up happening is that the Straw Hats, minus Luffy, have all gone into like kind of like the underground records area that I think Gordon told them how to get there or whatever. And they head down into this area where they're finding all of these different instruments. Well, they find these instrument-shaped golems that are attacking them, which I find kind of cool. and they have to fight against them. So we see that, and like, while this is going on, Robin is running around trying to find information and everything while the others buy her time. And she looks up and she sees this giant, carved mural on the ceiling, and Usopp lights it up at one point in time with one of his, fire stars. And she's able to read what it says, and because, again, ancient language, Robin can read it, blah blah blah, take your pick. It explains about Top Musica, that it is this horrible demon thing, that devil king, that when the song is sung by the person that uses the sing fruit, then they will be this devil will be awakened. And she concludes that, oh, that's what happened here 12 years ago on the island and everything. And if Uta's plan kept going, it would have wiped out like 70% of the population of the world, would just vanish away into Uta's world. Yeah. Okay. Side note. I'm as I said, I copied this from Library of Ohara, and I like the fact that he's added in different things and everything like that. He says, coincidentally, Aaron's voice actor, I'm assuming that's supposed to be Aaron from Attack on Titan, voices one of the side characters in the movie. Which I just find funny. Is also because, that's kind of Aaron's plot in Attack on Titan. Is to wipe out a large population of the world that's not Eldian. But moving back into One Piece. Also, Uta's band are just straight up like musical animals, which I just find adorable. I was going to mention that earlier. I forgot. This is what they look like. It's adorable. I just wanted to point that out because like they were like on the island with her and everything. So she had like animal friends on the island. So we have, the Straw Hats are fighting against these musical instrument-shaped golems and everything. So we get, like, fun attacks from the Straw Hats. And we have this one thing that's Frankie and Jinbei kind of, I think, team up. And, like, Frankie ends up spinning around and doing, like, a radical beam that ends up actually kind of, like, making the area where they're going to be in collapse. And Frankie's, like, super sorry and everything. So the Straw Hats need to get out. And what ends up happening is, Nami has Zeus at this point in time, so she's, using Zeus to, like, kind of protect her and Robin and everything from the rubble. And, like, we saw the Straw Hats, like, working with each other to, deal with the instrument golems. And there's a mirror there, and Nami runs over to this mirror and, like, bangs on it. And she's like, Brule, I know you can hear me. If you ever want to see your friends and your loved ones again, you need to help us now, because I know you can. And we see Brule, like, pop up in the mirror, and she's like, so if I help you, I'll get to see Katakuri again? Which, again, highlights that relationship that her and Katakuri have, with the fact that they are probably two of the closest siblings that we see throughout the course of the series, in regards to the Charlotte family, is those two, because that's the one that's really highlighted a lot throughout Totland, is their relationship, particularly through the flashbacks with Katakuri. And, they agreed, and, that'll happen, so they all run in there. And then in the dream world, we cut back to the main stage where, of course, Uta is. And this is where St. Charlos decides to pop up. Because for some frickin' reason, he was at the concert. Or I don't know exactly what to say about that. I don't know if he was at the concert or if he was, like, watching the concert and somehow ended up getting teleported there because of the song. I don't know, but somehow Charlos is there, and just gives me reason to show as I always like to do when it comes to Charlos, pictures of him getting whacked in the face by Luffy and by Milzigard. So I just like to put those in there because it makes me happy. And Uta just straight up basically says to his face that you're just like a petty little man and everything like that, and how horrible the Gorosei are, and the Marie Joie and everything. And Charlos is like offended by that. And he wants to buy Uta for like 1 billion berry and everything, and she refuses. And then she calls like the celestial dragons despicable, horrible things and stuff like that. Which he then ends up shooting one of his own men because they couldn't shoot Uta, and then she runs over and like she heals the one that he shot. And then everybody else in the audience is, of course, getting very, very, very angry about this. It's just like you're very worried more than anything. You can't go against the celestial dragon, and like Uta doesn't quite know this. And like they're all just like, oh, you can't do that. They can I don't think they specifically say like Buster Call, but it's just like you can't you can't do that, Uta. You can't defy a celestial dragon. And what ends up happening is, this is of course Uta's power, the mushrooms affecting her as well. She ends up, and this is I think at one point in time where you see like the wings on her back. Either I think this is where they sprout or where they get bigger. And she ends up just, it's a combination, of course, of her own stress and other things that we'll learn about, and her own and the insomniac shrooms, the wake shrooms affecting her. And she ends up, and like the Marines were there, some of the Marines that were in the audience, come up to try to protect Charlos, and she denounces them for being, allies of justice, when that's like, this man just shot his own bodyguard, and yet you're not doing anything against him, and you've never tried to stop the celestial dragons and everything. And this might be when Kobe appears. I don't remember on stage, but we get more of an explanation from Kobe at one point in time during this time. And this is where Uta ends up really making her fruit do even more. And she ends up basically changing she basically changes everybody into toys or food, which is really weird. Charlos gets turned into an ice cream cone, which I am perfectly fine with, but could we have turned him into something else that is much more punchable? Just because. And this is where Blue Uno gets chibi-fied, and then Blue Uno and Kobe are able to escape. And during this time frame, I think we get a little bit more of what happened, why Uta and Shanks were on the island to begin with, why the red-haired pirates were on the island 12 years ago. And it is that Shanks had taken Uta to the island and showed her all of the music and everything, and his intention was to leave her there so she could become this amazing singer and everything, and not have to worry about being tied to a famous pirate. And this is parts of the scenes that we see in the trailer where she's just like, but I'm the musician of the red-haired pirates, that's what I'm supposed to be. And he's just like, okay, that's fine, well, you can stay with me, and we'll leave in the morning. And then from Uta's perspective and from the world's perspective, what happened that night was, that's when Top Musica got released, and Uta woke up and the entire kingdom was in flames, and everybody except Gordon was dead, and the red-haired pirates were leaving with a bunch of treasure. And Uta runs after them, and she hears Gordon saying it was they tricked us, they brought you here and lulled us into a false sense of security before coming up and killing us or whatever, and they released the demon and everything, and it's the red-haired pirates' fault and everything, and they've abandoned you and all of that. And this is where we see in the movie where it's just Uta crying and everything in Gordon's arms as she's watching the red-haired pirates sail away, and from her back it looks like they're all raising a toast and happy and everything, with this huge pile of huge pile of treasure and everything. And we get that explanation. That's Uta's that's Uta's memories of what happened that night. And we cut around the world at various points, or bits where we cut to Marie-Joie and see oh, this horrible thing is happening, blah 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 blah, take your pick. I don't care if the Gorosei die or not at the moment, because they have done nothing that makes me like them. And what ends up happening is we get this explanation from Gordon, because the Straw Hat showed back up, and that's where Brule and her group are, with Oven and everything, because she helped the Straw Hats, and Kobe and Helmeppo and Blue Uno show up, and Gordon shows up and gives them more of an explanation as to what happened. Well, not 100% explanation, but it's okay, so the way that Uta's fruit works is that there is this world and there is this other world, and if Top Musica is used, then it creates this bridge from one world to the next. But it also creates this giant monster that, unless it's attacked both in the real world and in this world at the same time, at the same spot, it can't have any damage inflicted upon it. And so they're just okay, well, we need to come up with a plan and everything. Of course, Luffy and Law and Bardo and Tiny Sunny have found their way back to the group at some point in time in this, which is just adorable. And of course, Luffy is just like, screw the plan, and runs off. Okay. Yes, Luffy, screw the plan, runs off. Onigashima anybody. Just like, yeah, you can't really work a plan around Luffy. Usopp, yeah, I can't really work a plan around Luffy. It doesn't work. And, so we get a little bit more of that. And what happens is, this is where Luffy goes to the main stage where Uta is, where, she's like filled everything up, and it's like this like water, rainbow looking water environment or whatever. And Uta is like kind of waiting for Luffy, and he shows up, and he goes into like gear second, and he tries to attack her, but he can't bring himself to attack her. And she like summons her musical note knights and everything to attack Luffy, and they end up pinning him in, basically the exact same position that Roger is in when he's executed and everything. So that, one of the first images you see in One Piece in the manga and in the anime is Roger pinned on his execution block, is that. And we see that with Luffy there. Not the first time Luffy's almost been executed. Don't know if it'll be the last, but definitely not the first time. And, Uta's answer is, she's, intending to destroy this pirate era to create a much better era, her new Genesis, her new world, like they wanted to do when they were kids, to make the world better, this new world. And, this is where she takes Luffy's hat, pops it back out and like folds it up, and we see her almost rip it. She's, beginning to rip it in half, pulling it apart. Luffy is just like panics and begging her to not do that and everything. And, he says even if he loses to Uta, he has faith that Shanks will show up and fix things. And, Uta just finds it pathetic that Luffy keeps thinking that Shanks is going to show up, and this is where she gives him more of the backstory of what happened 12 years ago in the Elusia Kingdom. Shanks did all of this stuff, and he's the one that destroyed this place and everything, and he's just like, Shanks would never do that. And, she ends up, we get this, we get that whole backstory bit, those flashbacks, which are bits that we saw in the trailer for that. And we cut to the real world. Well, she tells Luffy like bye-bye, and then I don't know if she like vanishes again or whatever, but we cut to the real world where we see Luffy laying on the ground with like his straw hat on his chest, intact, but on his chest, and we see Uta kneeling next to him, where, he's the closest thing to a best friend that she ever had, because like, yeah, she had like all the red-haired pirates, and they were her family, and she loved all of them, and Shanks was her father. And then, she had Gordon, he was her, adopted father, foster father in that regard. But Uta has this huge amount of hate at the moment for the red-haired pirates, and just for pirates in general, from everything that she's seen done, heard that pirates have done to the world. Even if she doesn't know that Luffy has done this stuff, has done a lot of good, she doesn't know that. And even though he's her friend, she's also being affected by the mushrooms and everything. And she's straight up ready to just like stab Luffy. Like, okay. And, she almost stabs him, and then she stops. She stopped, and she looks up, and this is where we, this is a part of the trailer, in the trailer where we see Shanks and the rest of this in the red-haired pirates in the rain and everything. And she's like, what are you doing here? And he's just like, I came to hear my daughter sing, which I love. And, she's just like very angry at him and everything. And he's just smiling at her. And she just starts laughing maniacally and everything. It's just like, from her lack of sleep and everything. And she causes all the different, civilians to like gang up on the red-haired pirates and start attacking them. But of course, Shanks just stays completely calm and unfazed as he's like getting punched in the face. Again, this is a callback to Higama, callback to Mocktown and everything like that from what Luffy learned from Shanks. Also, these are civilians attacking Shanks. Shanks is not going to attack civilians, particularly ones that are asleep and being manipulated. He's not going to do that. Luffy could knock people out, but these guys are already knocked out, so it's not going to make much of a difference, even if Shanks did want to use his Conqueror's Haki. So that's not going to make any difference. And, the rest of the red-haired pirates, one of them, Howling Gab, I think almost attacks, but like he gets, he's stopped by Beckman and everything. We're not going to injure civilians and everything, which is basically kind of what we've seen from Shanks in the past. He does not seem to want to intend to hurt civilians. He was very protective of Fuchsia Village when he was staying there and everything. So we see that. And, during this time frame in the virtual world, Shanks realizes, or Luffy realizes, that Shanks must be out there in the real world. And that's why Uta is getting angry. And of course, that's when Kobe and the others arrive and everything. And they end up, kind of getting Luffy away from, where he's almost executed by Uta. And, she's, fending off their powers and everything. And she ends up, I think this is when she ends up changing everybody's, outfits, which I love how she does this, because she's like, well, pirates shouldn't look like friends. Pirates should look like pirates and should look horrible. And I think this is when they get the outfit changes, or it's just before this or just after this. Somewhere in this range is where they get the outfit changes. But this is where we get all the black and like Brooke with the spiky hair and everything. I just love the Straw Hats outfits that they have for this part. And, and like Barto and Kobe and like everybody else that's like part of this little rallying team. Even Brule and Oven get like new outfits for this. Brule's hair goes like, I think, blonde for this, and really spiky, kind of like Brooks's. So we get like that. So we get like this whole costume makeover for everyone. And, Barto had like trapped her inside of like a soundproof bubble. So probably similar to like one of Law's, one of the soundproof rooms that he put Big Mom in at the end of his battle with Big Mom. Probably similar to that, where, Barto's got her trapped inside of that so her music can't get out and affect them. And, that, stopped her musical notes and everything. And what ends up happening is in the real world, one of the Marines ends up shooting one of the civilians that's attacking one of the red-haired pirates, and this just causes Uta to go off even more, and she's like trying to stop the bleeding and everything. And the doctor of the red-haired pirates, I think Hongo was his name, I don't remember, he stops to like try to help, the person that was shot and everything. And she's like, she had ripped off the blue arm sleeve that we see Uta wearing in the movie. She rips off part of that to try to stop the bleeding, because she can't heal it right away like she can in the musical world. And what ends up happening is Luffy, or not Luffy, this is kind of what sets Uta off even more. And this is where she ends up summoning Top Musica, which is where she ends up singing this freaking awesome other rendition of this really dark sounding song that I think they just released. And it sounds great. And it's like very menacing and everything. And this is where the first parts of like Top Musica show up, and it's this huge, demon looking monster thing. And it's just causing chaos, both in the real world and in the virtual world, because that's the point. And, they state, before she summons it, Kizaru, I think, states that it's better to just end it now, as in like try to kill Uta now before she can summon Top Musica, because then that thing will just run rampant and just take care of her now, which of course, no, that is not what's going to happen. And, this is when she ends up singing the Top Musica and awakens, that one, both in the dream world and in the real world. We see these moments where, before she summons it, sorry, the Kizaru and a bunch of the other Marines had ended up kind of like attempting to shoot some of the civilians, because then they can try to attack Uta and get to Uta. And, the red-haired pirates are protecting them, and it's, what ends up happening? Ben Beckman, stops Kizaru from doing something which is very reminiscent of, in the payback, or not the payback war, in the, the Marine Ford and everything, where he stops him there. And, we see Lucky Roo get shot, but he's, his fat just absorbs the bullets, which I'm assuming is probably similar to the way that Luffy uses his rubber to like absorb the bullets and everything with hockey, and then he can like maybe not bounce them back out, but it's not really going to cause a whole lot of damage to Lucky Brew. And Shanks kind of stopped Fujitora at one point in time, but of course Fujitora is much less willing to hurt civilians, and Rockstar deflects some of the bullets and everything. And then that's where she, summons Top Musica with all of this going on, and summons it in both worlds. And I cannot. I just love the design, the sound design for that song, because it's so different than the other ones that we've heard her sing. And I loved how they designed it. It was great, and it just starts. It shatters Bado's barrier, and she sings and summons this giant freaking Demon King thing. And Kizaru states that it's ironic that the pirates are protecting the civilians and everything, but of course, protecting the civilians from the Marines, which is kind of like a commentary on parts of the One Piece world anyway, given the fact that there are various points in times where the Marines have been much more of the problem Morgans than the pirates have been. And in other cases as well, where the Marines have been much more of the issue and the ones causing problems than the Straw Hats or than the pirates in general. Not as much, but still. And what ends up happening, Buster Call Ohara. Buster Call and its lobby, where they blew up their own freaking island, which apparently has been completely rebuilt because we see it in the movie. And we see these moments where, Top Musica is, of course, starting to run rampant, and they're having to fight against it. And Shanks, leads the attack on the devil in the real world, and Luffy ends up leading the attack in the virtual world and everything. And we have, but their, individual attacks are kind of fruitless because, they're not timed correctly. Luffy tries using his Gatling gun and it doesn't do anything. Zoro tries using his stuff. Law as well, nothing works against it because it's not lined up with any of the other attacks in the real world. And, the attacks just bounce off and everything. And one of the things that ends up happening is, Uta ends up summoning like her giant spear because Luffy is like begging Uta to listen to him. And she ends up summoning this, her spear and throwing it at Luffy. And Gordon actually ends up being the one that jumps in front of it and takes the spear. And, just to protect Luffy. And this causes, this just causes Uta even more grief. And she explains, this is where Gordon finally explains that, no, what happened that night wasn't what I told you. Exactly what it ended up happening was because everybody on the island wanted to hear you singing even more, we brought you more music to sing. And somehow your singing combined with the fact that you have the fruit ended up summoning the music out of like the I don't know, secret vault hidden place or whatever that they had. The music for Top Musica appeared and it found its way to you and you sang it and you summoned it. But because you were a child and very inexperienced and didn't have a lot of stamina, it didn't last very long, but it lasted long enough to cause all of this damage, to cause all the damage that happened that night. And the red-haired pirates were the ones that were trying to stop it. And you were passed out when everything happened. By the time you woke up again, that's when they were leaving. And Shanks had told me to just have the blame fall on the red-haired pirates because then it would mean, less on Gordon and less on the people and less on Uta. It would put it on the pirates and everything as opposed to the civilians. And, that's where Shanks leaves Uta with Gordon and everything. And we get the flip side of what happened where it's just like, Gordon lies to Uta to somewhat protect her because that's what Shanks asked him to do. And we cut to the other side where we see Shanks and the crew, they're sailing away and they're raising their drinks and toast. But we cut to where we can see their faces, and of course they're crying because, of course they are, because they're leaving their child behind. Shanks is leaving his daughter behind on this island that, he just saw her go through this horrible traumatic thing and everything, but he's trying to do what he thinks is best for her. Conclusion, it's not. But he ends up, it's the rest of the crew are all crying and everything at this point in time, including the monkey. And they're just like, waiting, they're sailing off and everything, wishing Uta the best and everything. And, that's where Gordon is the one that, explains that to Uta, and Uta ends up somewhere in this point. She ends up revealing that, well, I found a transponder snail several years ago, and like a year ago or whatever, and it showed me what actually happened that night, and that I was the one that actually caused all of this, and I remember that, and that's why I need to do this and everything. And we see we see that and everything, and what ends up happening is this part's getting a little bit convoluted at times, I'm sorry. But during this point in time, Luffy ends up trying to get to where Uta is or whatever. And ends up, the red-haired pirates take full blame for what happens. And what ends up happening is, what happened 12 years ago, and now they've shown up again and everything, which to the world would just like they're trying to, destroy the island again. And which is not true. They're trying to protect the island. They were trying to protect the island in the past. It was an accident. Which I think most people kind of thought that, most fans thought that was going to be the case when we see something explained in one of the episodes where we get a bit more of that information. About what happened 12 years ago. And, that's why Shanks left Uta and everything, and why it's very hard for him to talk about it, because, of course, he had to leave his daughter. And that's why he didn't explain it to Luffy when Luffy was a kid, because Luffy wouldn't have understood anyway. That's why he said, we just left her to become, a singer. And what ends up happening is, this is where we see Luffy getting up to where Uta is and everything. And, the kind of what we saw in the trailers, it was like him running toward her and everything. And he gets to her, and he ends up seeing the symbol that was on her glove, which he remembers was this poorly drawn, with Luffy's poor drawing skills that we are well aware of. Way back in the beginning, he still can't draw, and he couldn't draw when he was a kid. He drew like this weird, flippy version of like the straw hat, of Shanks' straw hat. And he gave it to Uta, saying, well, this can be a symbol of the new era, of our era. And either Uta kept that, or even years later, she I'm going to use that symbol, and she had that on her glove. And, Luffy tells her more than anyone else, is it Gordon or is it Luffy? One of them says, it's more than anyone else, that very well that isn't true, that this isn't the new era. That what Uta is trying to do is not the era that is supposed to happen. And Uta is going through all of that, and she ends up, it's a combination of things, and she ends up she doesn't sing more, but it gives more power to the top Musica, and it just engulfs her inside of itself, to the point where Uta is basically, she's she's got the black Lunarian wings that we just got introduced to, in the manga a little while ago with King, with, the black wings and everything, and the seraphim. So we see that. And, top Musica is just even more powerful now, and has it's the final boss now. And she's just overwhelmed with all of these emotions and everything that she was hearing on the different recordings that people had said. And then, of course, what they were saying at the concert was, well, you can't do this, but you should do this, but I don't want to be here, but I want to go home, but I do want to be here, but I don't want to go. And all this other stuff that, was playing inside of Uta's head and everything. And she's wrapped inside of the taught Musica. And, she feels that she was supposed to do something because her fans were asking her, demanding of her to do something. And then we get this, we get all the Straw Hats and everybody getting ready to fight. And, Luffy got kind of attacked again by, Uta's power, and top Musica attacking Luffy and, sending him flying and everything. And what ends up happening is, it's just, we get some of these other moments where, Luffy, I don't know if he exactly gets knocked out or whatever, but we see all the Straw Hats getting ready, and they're trying to work together with, Brule and Oven and the other pirates, and, of course, Kobe and Helmeppo and Blue and O and such that are there. And they're all trying to work together because Zoro states, well, since the red-haired pirates are here, there's a good chance, there's even more chance that if we just keep attacking this thing, eventually our attacks will line up. with theirs in the real world, and we can actually do damage to this thing. So what ends up happening is, and I love how they do this, they're using Brulee's mirror world as a way to get all of the different civilians that have been, chibi-fied and toyified into like her mirror world, so that way they can be in a safe spot during, they're out of the way during this battle and everything. Like Robin and Nami are helping direct them into those areas and everything. And then Brule is being protected by Beppo, and Blueno and Sunny are like covering her back and everything. And then of course like everybody else is like all working together to try to attack the top Musica, being directed by Kobe, which of course just shows Kobe's skill even more. And we get all of that, and then what ends up happening is, the musical knights are still attacking and everything. And, I don't know if we quite see what some of them, what Zoro and Sanji awakened in the... I don't think we see Sanji use blue fire at any point in time. I don't remember. So Ifrit Janbei, I don't remember. I don't think so. And what ends up happening is out in the real world is, the red-haired pirates are, of course, attacking the top Musica as well. And this is when Katakuri shows up, and he explains that, well, I have good enough observation hockey, and I'm assuming a strong enough bond or something like that with Brule that he can like look into the other world at brief glimpses and see the virtual world, and he can try to synchronize his attacks that way. And Shanks thanks Katakuri, and he's just like, well, you're not the only one that has that skill. And he looks at Yasop, which I love, and I think Yasop says, well, if my damn son will just calm down and stop being afraid. So, and like Luffy and Shanks, like one of their attacks almost lined up, but it didn't quite line up. And like Luffy can send Shanks out in the real world. And we have this moment where, Usopp finally, calms down enough, and, we see his observation hockey flare up to the point where him and his dad are connected through their observation hockey, and he hears his dad's voice in his head, which is, for Usopp, at least the first time he's probably heard his dad's voice in about 12 years. Because we have no idea exactly when the last time was Usopp saw his dad. But he's like, yeah, you finally realized that my dumb son, or my silly son, or whatever it is he ends up calling him. And then it's like the two of them are, intertwined enough, and with, Katakuri and Brule, that they're able to direct where they need to all attack at the same time. So and I love how they show that with Usopp and Yasop. I love how they did that. That just made me so happy. And then we get this orchestral remix of New Genesis going. And it's, Luffy and Shanks at the same time, men, let's do this. And everybody's getting ready to attack. And we have these great different combo moves that I love that we get to see. And I hope I'm going to get them all right, because it's like Usopp and Yasop sending out the commands of, go for this arm and that leg and everything, and like go for the center and everything. And they're like whittling away at top Musica. And I love how they do this, because they have Kobe opens up a kick, and like Zoro was there jump kicking. I think he does use his Conqueror's hockey, so I think we get some of that, which looks like green instead of like the red or stuff that we see with Luffy and stuff and Shanks. And we see them attack one arm at the same time that like Ben Beckman is attacking the same arm, and that gets rid of that arm. And then we have Jinbei and Lucky Roo are kind of like working together, Jinbei and Helmeppo kind of work together, because he throws Helmeppo on like a wave and everything at the same time that Lucky Roo is attacking with Hongo, and Lucky Roo gets thrown like a bowling ball by Hongo, which I'm like, well, I guess that explains how Lucky Roo fights. And we see that, and then we see Howling Gab and Sanji's attacks are kind of paired up at the same time, because like Sanji and Oven kind of like attack together and hit one arm. Well, Howling, so Sanji does use Ifrit Janbei. I wasn't sure, I couldn't catch that in the movie. And then like Howling Gab attacks with like his like pacifista like laser. Don't ask me how he does that, but he did that. So he gets another limb destroyed, and then we have Robin and Chopper team up to attack one of the other arms, or one of the other legs, I don't remember. Bonk Punch and Monster is a monkey, attack with Robin like throwing Chopper again and everything. And then so we have that, and then we have this moment where Nami and Zeus kind of end up aligning an attack alongside bonk or along lime juice, and they attack. So that hits one area, and then Brooke and Rockstar, both very pointy hair at the time, kind of like their attacks line up and hit like a different area and everything. So they're destroying different critical body parts of the top Musica as it's going and everything. So one arm's dead, another arm's dead, one leg's dead, another leg's dead, and then like they hit the center of it and everything. And then we have this moment where, Usopp and Yasopp both combine attacks at the same time with Frankie and Building Snake, who, attack that way and everything. So we get those. So we get great team up moments, which I love. They're great. So we see that. And so like all the limbs are gone, and then it's just left to Luffy and Shanks to attack. And we have this moment where, Luffy has entered like Snake Man and everything. So he's ready to attack. And, the Devil King is like attacking them, of course, shooting their own attacks at them and everything. And, we get these moments where, as, Luffy and Shanks are like, going into attack, we get these memories from Shanks where he's remembering where, the dog just came into the room. Hi. You want up on the bed? Up. Or not. That's up to you. I'm almost done. And what ends up happening is, we get these memories from Shanks. It was like 19 years ago when they, they just finished reading the ship. And, he's still like 20 years old, so he's still pretty young. You can get up on here if you want. I'm not going to stop you. There you go. And what ends up happening is, they were like celebrating, and then they heard like a baby crying in a chest, and then they open the chest, and there's like this little baby Uta, and she starts crying, and then Shanks attempts to start singing, and that calms her down enough. And here, do you want the computer to look at you? There, now they can see you. Shanks finds his daughter. I talk about it while I'm around my kid. And what ends up happening is, he like sings to Uta and it calms her down. And then we get this flashback to when Shanks was a baby, when he was found after God Valley by Roger and Rayleigh and Gabon, which is of course a reference to when Roger and Rayleigh state that, it's been a long time since they've held a kid, when they're holding Hiyori and Momo when they were babies. So we get that. So we get that whole thing stated there, that pretty much Shanks is a celestial dragon from the Figureland family, and him finding Uta, and he says, this could be a work of fate and such. So we see that memory come through, and we get this combination of We Are and New Genesis playing in the background. That I like in the notes here. Archer has put We Are New Genesis is kind of what he's calling it at the moment, which is going to be a great mix to have. As Shanks and Luffy are attacking at the same time. Shanks has Griffin, and he's got like it's all Conqueror hockey coated and everything. He's ready to attack this giant music thing that took his daughter from him twice now. And Luffy, he can't, Snake Bend isn't enough, and we see it where Luffy pushes himself to the brink, and we get it where he shifts into gear fifth and everything. So we get to see that. And it's like we get these cutting back and forth between Luffy and Shanks and everything. And it's gone like, it's all white and red as we're cutting through the both of them as they're both attacking, top Musica at the same time. And it just destroys the damn thing. It's just gone. Just destroys the damn thing. A lion and a hawk and everything attacks at the same, all these references that we're seeing it that I can't do justice to, but it's great to watch. And they just like, top Musica is just enveloped in this power and then explodes. And apparently lets out this devilish shriek. And then, everyone's happy. Okay, it's gone. And then they realize that they're not going back to the new world. They're not going back to back to the real world. Also, there was a moment where like something was going to hit Brûlé, but Sanji stopped it, and he said, even though we're enemies, I still can't bear to see a woman get hurt, which makes Brûlé blush. Just wanted to throw that in there. And we see that, and like at one point in the real world during the fight, like Katakuri had been attacked kind of by Brûlé, so he's like trying to not hurt his own sister, of course, in the process of trying to stop her from hurting anybody else. And, we have, Uta is like in Shanks's arms as she's like collapsed, and he's like trying to get her to drink medicine and to make her fall asleep. But she says, no, I have to, um, I have to release everybody from my musical influence, or else they won't wake up again and they'll be trapped in the virtual world because they've been there for so long because of her powers. And, she stands up and she says, proclaiming proudly that she is she is the musician of the straw hat of not of the straw hat. She is the musician of the red-haired pirates, and she proclaims that proudly again. And Uta then sings the world's continuation is what she sings. And Hongo, or not Hongo, Monster the monkey brings over the Den Mushi, so it'll broadcast it everywhere so everybody will hear it. And we see as Uta is singing, and it's a strained type of singing, but she's like, I have to do this or else everybody's going to be trapped. And she's like singing this one last song, and it's, golden imagery, golden sparks are appearing, and gold dust, whatever you want to look at, is like popping up all over the place. And like everybody within the music world is falling asleep again. So that way their souls will be reconnected to their bodies and everything as they're supposed to be. So we see that, and so the world is restored to normal. And then, once everything's resolved, Shanks, is holding Uta in his arms again and everything, and like she's, is Luffy okay? And it was like, yeah, they're all fine. And of course the Marines show up, and they all have the weapons pointed at the red-haired pirates and everything. And this is when Shanks, he stands up and he's just, full on declaring, Uta is my daughter. She is my precious family. And I think at one point, Ben Beckman had even stated to Kizaru that it's just like, you're not going to come here and you're not going to hurt our daughter. So I guess by technicality, she's also by extension what Usopp's weird adopted foster sister as well, because Usopp helped raise her. I don't know. And Shanks just ends up letting out this huge blast of his Conqueror's Haki, which is, we kind of got hints of it back on Whitebeard's ship, but this is just this huge blast of it. And like all the lower ranked Marines just like straight up pass out. And, a lot of the vice admirals are passing out, and like Kizaru and Fujitora are fine. Momonga doesn't pass out, but a lot of the others do. But, everybody else, but just so many of the other ones are just passing out and everything. And, Fujitora is just like, this isn't worth it. He is like retreating and everything. And, I don't know if he just like grabs Kizaru and pulls him away or whatever, but like, we just got to get the civilians and everything. There's too many civilians around for us to do this and everything. So they retreat. And, Khalifa's like, okay, well, everything's back to normal. So I guess I'm good. And I guess she leaves. I guess she's going to wait for Blue Note to wake up or take him with her or whatever. And, Shanks tells Uta not to worry as she's like, falling asleep or collapsing in his arms, because the new era is almost here. I don't remember if he looks at Luffy when he says it or if we pan to Luffy when he says that, but it's definitely a reference to that. And, she's, her voice, she sings the song Where the Wind Blows one more time, and it's supposed to be like a farewell to her family, to her friends and family. And, it's sad. And we see Luffy like regaining consciousness within his dreams, and he gets to talk to Uta one more time. And, they like joke about like, oh, your punch was as strong as a pistol and everything, but you never hit me once. And he's also like, I'm not going to hit you. You're my friend. And she, repairs the straw hat of the dream and gives it back to him. I will not cry. Gives it back to him, says, take good care of it. And, she's like, I lost again. Says goodbye. And then, during that time, okay, the dog moved again. The dog. Are you leaving or not? I'm almost done. An hour and 40 minutes into this. I'm almost done. And what ends up happening is, of course, Luffy wakes up back on his ship, back on the Sunny and everything. And, all the rest of the crew is there, and like everybody's leaving Elysia. And Luffy kind of looks over at where the red-haired pirate ship is, and we kind of see, I mean, it's like it's far enough away that it's debatable about whether or not Luffy can fully see what's going on, but according to what the notes say, they see a casket draped in the red-haired pirate's flag, which is basically holding Uta's funeral, which I'm just like, I don't want Uta to be dead. But then, like, I checked like this morning or whatever on like the Wikipedia page for One Piece, the One Piece Wikipedia, to see if she was dead or not. And if it was like unsure, I'm like, okay, can she not be dead? I really want to see her sing again. But the crew, the Straw Hats are departing silently and everything, and then we get to the credits, which is where the wind blows gets to play one more time, and we cut to all these different places around the world. We see Cypher Pole, we see Stussy and Kaku, going wherever it is they're supposed to go. We see the Baratie in Water 7. We see Katakuri and Brûlé being reunited with Pudding. So I'm assuming that's before Pudding is kidnapped. We see Perona flying around. We see Bellamy working on flags. We see Johnny and Yosuke for the first time since we haven't seen them in a long time. We see them animated. We see Garp and Shakuyaku walking around the town. I don't know why Garp and Shaki would be anywhere near each other. We see the jellyfish pirates just like happily singing and everything because they're Uta fans now or whatever. We see Smoker and Tashigi looking after kids, which might be a reference to like the kids from Punk Hazard. We see Hancock and like the rest of her and her sisters on Amazon Lily with Gladiosa listening to Uta songs. Like all of these different images have one of the tone dials or someplace where like we see Uta's music coming out of, so it's showing that her music is continuing, and we see other people that had been at the concert that are continuing to listen to her music. We see Gaimon and Garfunkel. We see Gambia's grandmother, I guess. I don't know, the one that's connected to Barlow's crew, I guess. I don't remember. I didn't catch that one. We see Gordon training, starting to train kids again in music. We see all these other ones. We see Makino and everything in the village with the tone dial listening to songs. I think we see somewhere in this time frame we also see the Fire Tank Pirates with Lola and Gotti and everything, so we see them with all of them. We see Water 7 in here somewhere. We see I don't think we see Alabasta because I know we don't see Vivi. We see Shirahoshi and like her her friends and everything listening to music there. We see Rebecca and Kuros and the Tontata in Totland, or not in Totland, in Dressrosa, singing along and listening to the music and everything. So it's just this great little, there's no Skypiea, unfortunately. We see, a bunch of other stuff though, that are references to, stuff in the background and everything, which is just really fun to see. And then we cut to the final scene, which is there's a post-credit scene, and it's Luffy on top of the Sunny on the figurehead, and he like pats the figurehead, like I guess trying to see if the Sunny is like really back to what it was supposed to be or whatever. And of course we see him standing up, and of course he proclaims Kaizuko Onioro Whenever I'm gonna be king of the pirates and everything, which in the context of the movie, if it is that Uta is dead, it is just Luffy doubling down on the fact that he is, no, I am going to become king of the pirates, and I am going to try to make this new era, this new world that my friend wanted to create, but didn't get to see. Which I kind of have a feeling that, because we've kind of been, well, it's basically stated that we don't know the whole part of Luffy's dream. Yes, he wants to become king of the pirates, but then there's another part that we don't know of yet. Uta may be one of the other people, maybe not fully, but part of, depending on how canon you want to make that relationship, that friendship when they were kids, part of Uta's ideas may have also influenced Luffy's in regards to him wanting to become the Pirate King, so he can try to maybe not straight up make the world a better place, but so that way he can, have the giant party or whatever it is that Luffy wants to have, be the freest man in the world. Uta may have had some input on that. and I am at an hour and 45 minutes, and I have to finish this because my computer is about to die. So I really, really love this movie, and I love the fact that the English voice actress for Uta is Amanda. Her name is Amanda Lee, and I was so happy when I saw that. And there's like an English version of New Genesis out that I loved, and I loved all the other songs that they had for that. So I just love that. Stuff is in the credits and the notes for this. As I stated, a bunch of this stuff came from Artor on Library of Ohara, just to make sure that I didn't miss anything. I'm sure I missed something, but I love the movie. Maybe my new favorite One Piece movie. So I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Please go watch the movie because I can't do it justice. I hope you watch the movie before you watch this review. So thank you. Bye.